propaganda hit an all-time high last year, and Illinois saw one of the biggest increases in the country.
According to the Anti-Defamation League, the Midwest became a hotspot in Illinois. There were 152 incidents. That is a 100% increase. White supremacists held 3 events across the state last year. Racist propaganda increased 24% in Indiana and 48% in Wisconsin.
So joining us to discuss their findings is David Goldenberg, ADL's Midwest Director. Sir, thank you so much for joining us. Could we start off first by talking about the abundance of anti-Asian violence? Just yesterday in Atlanta, a man arrested for allegedly killing 6 Asian women, saying, though, he didn't do it, race was not a factor. But we have seen such an increase in anti-Asian violence, haven't we?
We have, and let me start by saying that all of us at ADL, myself, are maddened and heartbroken by another act of violence against the Asian American community. And while we don't know the motive yet of last night's shootings in Atlanta, we know, though, that attacks against the AAPI community are at an all-time high, are continuing to increase and have been increasing over the course of the last year.
Why is this, do you believe?
Well, we saw it more than a year ago, starting with President Trump scapegoating members of the Asian American community for being responsible for the spread of coronavirus, using racist and xenophobic terms, calling COVID a number of these racist terms that continue to perpetuate throughout society because he and others gave permission for it. And so we saw that occurring, and we saw that increasing during last spring, during summer. Seemed to lower down a little bit, but it has ramped up significantly in the last few months. And it really is incumbent upon all of us to speak out and to do something about it. Because hate against one community is hate against another. But right now, the Asian American community is being targeted, and we need to stand up and speak out and help protect them.
So propaganda, the events, those are up. What about actual violence? Have you tracked that as well?
So we have not tracked necessarily violence statistically against Asian Americans. We know, though, that it's up from our partners in the Asian American community. What we also know is that the rhetoric that we saw in many ways around the election, around the pandemic, emboldened those who have these extreme views and those who have these racist and xenophobic and anti-Semitic views. And many of them were taking action in a violent way, through harassment, and through also intimidation.
Mr. Goldenberg, how do we change this? After years and years and years of this, I know it's more prevalent now, but how do we change it?
Well, in many ways, the genie, shall we say, is out of the bottle in some ways, and we've got to figure out a way as a society to put it back in. There's a role that government plays in making sure that we have laws and hate crimes that protect people. We have a responsibility from an education perspective to address issues of ignorance. And we have a responsibility as a society to speak out, to share facts, to show strength when these incidents occur, and realizing that while an incident did not target maybe my community or your community, that it's incumbent upon all of us to stand up and speak out against this type of violence. Because when it becomes more and more socially unacceptable, and for some reason, some people think that it's become okay